Welcome, welcome, welcome. Mentalism, correspondence, vibration, polarity, rhythm, cause and effect, gender. Countdown initiated. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Welcome, everyone. We are live. And you know, it's Tuesday. Oh, yes, it is Tuesday. And it's a lovely day. We're talking about fact and feeling. Fact and feeling equals cause and effect. How so? The fact, which is the thing that you believe to be true, brings about a feeling. Cause and effect. Now, the reason why feelings are important, not to be always confused with emotion, but they're feelings. Emotions are feelings because you feel them. Emotions are things that are felt. Okay? So that's why I put them all there together to say feeling. So, you have something that you know to be true. And it is a knowing that you feel. Like if I ask you your name, you're going to tell me what your name is. Because you know your name. And you have a feeling of certainty of your name. That is cause and effect. Now, the reason why this is important for changing our lives is this. When you have a feeling, if it does not line up with the fact that you hold to be true, it feels kind of weird. You feel unsure, you feel off kilter, you feel pretty much feel uncertain. You're like, I don't know. There's just a feeling that you get. It's just like, I don't know, man, this doesn't sit right with me. The reason it's important is because fact and feeling always line up. You see, we've spent so much time thinking that we are contradictory to ourselves. You can't contradict yourself. No. You can only do what you know. So it is contrary to law or principle to be contradictory to oneself. As within, so without. Every cause has its effect, and every effect has its cause. So you're always going to be in alignment because you cannot be out of alignment. It feels like we're out of alignment when we say things like, well, I got the opposite. You cannot plant corn and reap peas. So whatever you have on the inside is what you will experience on the outside. So you and I are always in alignment. And it feels like we're out of alignment when we don't know how we feel. When we don't know how we feel, you understand? This is why it's important, because if you know how you feel about a particular thing, and you say, you know what, I determined that I was going to be this type of person. I determined I'm going to have this kind of attitude. I've chosen this attitude for myself. Well, this attitude comes with this type of behavior. So you start with your attitude that you want to have, and then naturally you will behave in the corresponding way. That's it. But if you say, I don't like this feeling, how would you know to change? Because the feeling is the barometer. The feeling is the barometer. You need that to guide you to say, oh, these two things match. Or, wait a minute, I'm not quite there yet. So the feeling or the emotion is not something to be hidden or to be suppressed or to be masked, because it will lead to self-destruction. How so? Well, if you say, I'm going to behave like this, and that sits right with you, well, you are in alignment. Thereby, whatever's within that you say you are, that is what you will experience on the outside. But if you say, well, I know I want to do this thing, but I feel stuck and I can't. I don't know how to do it. Now, what has happened is you are fighting against yourself. You want to do something and you say, I don't know how. And it causes frustration. It causes agitation. So that would tell you you're not going in the right direction, because peace accompanies the right direction. So because you have the barometer, which is your feelings, you taste them and you say, not quite. And you adjust yourself. And when you adjust yourself, that's when you can say, oh, wait, I'm just about. It's like when you're baking that cake and you do the test. You poke the cake with the toothpick. And if it comes out clean and not gummy, the cake is done. So what do? The toothpick is clean, so the cake is done. You take it out. But if you have the toothpick in there and you take it out and it's all gummy, that is your cue to say, oh, let me leave it a little bit longer. So everything we do, if we realize it, we're always adjusting and readjusting who and what we are based upon the present mood or present feeling. That is what we're constantly doing. Because when you realize that the feelings you hold, and you can use emotion here as well, interchangeably, because the emotion is still a barometer. The emotion is an effect. It's a barometer that you can use. If you say, I feel angry, you can ask yourself, well, why am I angry? Do I want to be angry right now? Is this worth the energy to be angry? And naturally, if you don't want to be angry and you ask yourself that question or those types of questions, you will find that you move from anger into another mood, another emotion. Because they're there so that we can use them to guide ourselves towards where we want to be. So the next time you're having a feeling, it is not a feeling that you judge. It is not a feeling that you judge. So if you say you're at work and you're feeling a little bit, man, I really want to change. I want to change an environment. Every time you go to that job, it feels a particular way to you. There's a feeling of dissatisfaction. So you ask yourself the question, is the dissatisfaction with the job? Or is the dissatisfaction within myself? See, if we would take the time to examine the feeling, we'd begin to see perhaps the dissatisfaction may not be with the job. We may be feeling dissatisfied with life altogether. So then you get to dig a little deeper. Well, where am I dissatisfied? What is it that I truly want to be doing? That I feel I can't do it? What is that? Well, I really enjoy ... Because every time I do that, I feel so emboldened. I feel so alive when I do that. Now you can do something because you've recognized what dissatisfaction feels like. And you're saying to yourself, wait, is it the job? Or is it that I am dissatisfied on the inside? And so dissatisfaction has to show itself on the outside. So what we tend to do is overlook the feeling or judge the feeling or hide the feeling. That's what we tend to do, thereby prolonging our suffering. You know what you want to become. You know what you want to experience. But then there's this thing in the back of your mind and you're fretting about it. Well, I don't know. Well, then you would begin to realize that that feeling is fear. What are you afraid of? Because that's why you're not acting. One does not behave boldly in the face of fear. I'm going to say that to you again. If there's fear on the inside, you will behave in a way that shows you that you are afraid. But if you say, I was afraid, I felt afraid, but I chose to be courageous, I chose to be bold, that means you changed your mood from fear to courage. That's the only way you're going to act courageously, is to feel courageous on the inside. It's just along the lines of people who say, I was sick and tired of being sick and tired. So I just said, no more. They literally had to change their mentality. So when you look at your feelings and you look at the feelings of others, this is an important piece here. When you encounter the feelings and the emotions of others, those feelings and emotions of the other person are telling you how they feel on the inside. So if somebody says to you, oh my God, you're such a loser, I hate you, and that stings you, that hurts you, that's not your hurt. That is a projection of theirs. So if your kids are yelling at you, talking about, Ma, I hate you. You're trying to ruin my life. You know how dramatic teenagers can be. It's not you. That is how they feel on the inside about themselves. They're scared about something that they don't quite know how to express because they've never expressed it before. So it's not a time to say, go to your room. You're grounded. I'm taking away everything. Blah, blah, blah. You leave your phone. Blah, blah. No, that is a time to sit and say, let's talk it out. Because there's something deeper here that perhaps you don't quite know how to express. Don't talk to me. I'm going to my room. I don't want to see you. And they bang the door. Give them a minute. Give them some time. Don't be so quick to punish. Understand what they are feeling. They're telling you something. They're telling you something. They're not being disrespectful to you at that age. They're just telling you something that they don't quite understand just yet. But perhaps if you've had a hard day and you come home and you're a little bit upset, well, then that's going to trigger you. And then both will be yelling at each other. See? This is what happens. But what if it's a husband? What if it's a wife? Same thing applies. What if it's a boyfriend or a girlfriend? Same thing applies. They're saying what they're saying, or they're not saying what they're saying. But always remember, what is coming out of them is a projection of what they presently feel on the inside. It is not your cue to take up offense. Oh, but Angela, I'm supposed to let them be disrespectful? No. You're understanding something. Many a friendship could be saved, if we would understand each other and not be so quick to judge and throw the baby out with the bathwater. Think about that for a moment. When you feel what somebody has said to you, it is not your feeling, it is a projection of theirs, because that's what we are always in a state of doing, projecting outward, because it is how we build our lives from the inside out. It's what we do. So if you take the time to recognize that fact and feeling go together, what you know is what you're going to feel. If we take the time to know that part, we'd be able to look at a situation and discern right away what to do, including for ourselves to say, okay, look, I'm just going to apply this over here because I said I'm a self-respecting woman. Well, a self-respecting woman, that's a cool word, but what does it actually look like? Well, it looked like me doing this. It looked like me doing that. Okay, that is exactly what it would look like. Is that what I'm doing right now, or am I doing the opposite? What am I doing? Am I behaving like the type of woman I say I am? No. Well then, how would that woman behave? And you start to see yourself and you begin to rehearse how you would be behaving as that woman or as that man. And you walk in it and you rehearse it because why? Not because you're faking it till you make it, but because you understand the inevitable outcome of a rehearsal. The inevitable outcome of rehearsal is acting it out. Period. So what is it that you want to act out in the world? Rehearse it inside of your mind's eye. Rehearse it. Don't just look at it. Rehearse it. Do it in your mind's eye. Get in front of the mirror. Get those shoulders up and back and walk into a room in your mind's eye with that attitude and watch how people respond to you in your mind's eye. And if they respond to you in the way that you want them to, which is to, well, hi, it's so good to see you, because that's the way that kind of attitude would be greeted. Versus you walk into the room with your eyes downcast, your shoulders slouched. Now, if we were in Elizabethan times, they'd have a fan and they'd be whispering, "Oh my God, look at her! Oh my God, why is she here? Look at this wallflower." Well, you walked into the room like a wallflower, trying to hide, trying to be invisible. But if you walk into that room mentally with a particular attitude that says, you know what? I'm supposed to be here. I've come here to have a good time just like the rest of you. So I'm going to have a good time. You walk in there with that attitude in your mind's eye. And in your mind's eye, you see people responding to you with, oh my God, it's so good to see you. Hands shaking, hugging, if you're that type of person. Well, now, what did you just do? You just walked with confidence. Confidence is the effect. Over and over again. You rehearse it until such time you don't have to rehearse it anymore because you're just doing it now. Is that not how we function? We don't rehearse anymore for the certain things we do, right? At first, we may have been afraid to drive, but now we out here leaning on that horn and rolling down our window. Get out of the way! Go, merge. Yeah. You see, we practiced our driving so much so that we were no longer afraid to drive, but now we are the ones hollering at people on the road, talking about get out the way. That's the whole point. That's what practicing and rehearsing does. So, when you get a particular feeling, there's a fact that accompanies that feeling. And if you say, the type of person I am no longer matches that feeling, then I got to get a new fact about myself. So you get the new fact about yourself. We call them affirmations. But affirmations are not things that you just say willy-nilly and play incessantly before you fall asleep in your headphones. That's not what an affirmation is. An affirmation is a fact that you hold to be true about yourself. Why? Because you affirm it to be so every time you say it. Oh my God, nothing ever goes right. You have just affirmed it. That's why if you say, things are always working out for me, but in the back of your mind, you're like, "Ugh, things rarely ever go right." Those two things are at conflict because you don't hold it to be a fact. You hold the other one to be a fact. So, how do you get the thing that you hold? How do you get rid of that so that you can hold the other one? Well, you start with the truth. And the truth is this: what would you be doing naturally? If you know that you're a little bit shy, naturally you'd walk into a room and you say, you know what? I might be a little bit shy, but once I get warmed up, what? You can't stop me. That is the truth. That is what you tell yourself. I might start a little bit shy, but once I get warmed up, what? Look out, world. That is what you affirm to be true about yourself. So you start there. And what happens? Well, you start out a little shy when you go into the space, but then you get warmed up and everybody's looking at you like, well, dang, she sure jumped out of that shell. Because it sits right with you. It is what you would be doing naturally. If you would not naturally walk into a room and start hollering and cussing people out, that's out of character for you. That's weird. So you know you wouldn't be doing that. So what would you be doing? There's always something you know that you'd be doing. If I say to you, what you gonna do on Friday night? If you're not a clubber, you'd be like, I'd probably be at home having some popcorn and watching a show. That's what I'd be doing. I'm such a homebody. That is naturally what you'd be doing. Would you be on the phone? Would you be texting somebody? Well, then, if you would be texting somebody, have that text. What would that text say? Well, how would you respond to the text? Naturally. Oh my God, I totally know what you mean, right? Like, do you want to come over? Now look at that, you got company. Because naturally, that's what you would be doing. But if you're like me, I don't necessarily like people at my house. I don't, because that's not my personality. When I'm at home, just let me be. When I'm out in the world, we can hoot and holler and cavort all we want. But when I go home, don't call me. That's how it is when I go out with people. Just when I get home, I'm home. Because that's how I would be naturally. So for things that I want to change in my life, I see them for what I would be doing when I'm outside. Because naturally, that's where I would be interacting outside. I'd go to the park, I'd go to the store, and I'd meet people and we'd talk and we'd hang out, we'd go for tea. Those are things I would do outside of my house, naturally. I would not imagine myself having people over because that's not what I would naturally do. I don't think it's something I want to change either. I like my space. So when you are changing the fact that you no longer want to hold to be true, what fact do you want to replace it with that is true?